So I wake up this morning to a nice, thankful ping on Discord where a friend of mine uh, basically wants to show me this replay here that we're about to see in a minute. And, I was just thinking of taking a break today and not prepping for GSCPL this week, but, almost not touching Mons at all. But I figured this is actually a nice discussion, and I'm going to leave this video there for him. But it's also going to be out there for you guys to see. I figured I'd have something for this week, scheduled for this week. But that's going to have to wait. Instead, you're going to get this. And I also have an announcement of a tournament that I want to host. So if you want to stay until the end, the video is quite long. Stay until the end. I'd be very glad to announce this tournament. It's in the works still, but it should be especially interesting for ADV players. Anyways, getting onto the topic, what we have here is Deezcastforms, right? A good friend of mine. We were teammates in Pokemon Perfect League, and we get along just fine. He's been reaching out to me a couple of times because I'm always glad to help people with some teams. And he writes on Discord just asking if anybody knows this player he's facing, Eco Papa 20,000. Not even 2,000. I feel like 2,000 rolls off the tongue better, but 20,000, this guy is a lunatic, right? And he says, I just denied them 1,600 elo. Offered them a tie at like turn 105 or something because I saw my win path, but it would have taken a bunch of loops, turns, time, RNG. It wasn't even guaranteed, and I didn't want to play it out. So if you don't know, when you offer a tie, it may look like you are offering a tie and that there's nothing to lose, but if someone is at a higher elo, they lose points. And sometimes they lose lots of points. Ties can happen when either a player offers a tie or in some other very unique cases I'm not going to get into right now. So he said, I figured that going for it and not getting it was also the only way I could lose. True, I guess, And that's also another interesting topic. But anyways, he refuses probably because he has an extra 150 elo, but then he donated 30 elo 70 turns later. So essentially, I spoiled the outcome. He won. Okay, Deezcastforms won. So let's see how he won. All right. And this is going to be an interesting topic. It's going to be a little bit more analytical than your typical video. I mean, I do get analytic, but analytical? We got lax on lax lead. Just something not too out of the normal, right? In certain scenarios, even depending on tournament format, you may use a specific lax lead. You'll have a certain game plan in mind. With ladder, I don't know. There's nothing that we can know for sure, right? If you stay in, typically, I guess on ladder, it's because you want to set up and use curse. And that's what we see here. And it doesn't necessarily matter what comes in. Because if you are a mono lax, chances are you have some answer to the normal resist if you have a decent team. Now, I helped these build this team, so I know what he has in the back. I'll just say it. So he has a Golem, a Cloister, a Machamp, an all-out attacking T-Tar, and a Zapdos. The T-Tar has Pursuit, Rock Slide, Earthquake, and Flamethrower. I know I spoiled a lot, but the rest is pretty much self-explanatory. And it looks like Eco Papa has a stall team with a Curse EQ lax check and a Flame lax check. So good idea to scout there. +2 sorry, +1 double edge. Doesn't do significant amount, but it can add up, especially if it's a whirlwind Skarmory. Deezcastforms. It should. I should also say. I should also mention that Deezcastforms is an ADV player. So they've been dabbling with GSC, and they have a. You can even see for the Elo here. They have some understanding of it. They don't know all of the mechanics though. Anyway, Zapdos comes in. So we do see a whirlwind Skarm. So Skarmory should have to be careful here. It's a good defensive mon. It's much better at walling defensive Pokemon than an ADV. For any of the ADV viewers out there, it's very good, in fact, when compared to ADV. So the downside is it doesn't have spikes. So in comes T-Tar here. Fair enough. And we didn't see Toxic. So I don't know if Deez was scouting what the idea here is, but typically I want to bring in Zapdos. It's just the best answer to Skarmory. Skarmory can't really touch it. Even at +6 attack with Drill Peck, it's not going to be able to break the Zapdos because of the flying type and the electric typing. So yeah. Actually, not the flying type, the electric typing. So, and it's a sleep talker, so it doesn't have to worry about Toxic. He goes to T-Tar. He sees another T-Tar. Of course, you want to watch out for things like D-Punch, Earthquake. He goes to Machamp. This is a good switch. Just by all means, it's a good switch. And this is the part where it gets kind of interesting. So, actually, it's not even a switch. It was a double. So we see Golem and Skarmory, right? No, sorry. We see T-Tar on T-Tar. And, he switched to T-Tar, and he makes this double to Machamp. Machamp takes some damage from the T-Tar, but anyways, what I want to focus on is more what happens here. So, in this scenario, we see a Machamp. It's staring down a Skarmory, and here's this. This is what happens next. Bam. Switches into T-Tar on the Machamp, and it dies. Oko. No crit. Just ×6 damage from a 100 base power move. Including the stab. And so Tyranitar gets squashed like a bug. Now, if this were Flame Lax, Ecopapa would automatically be in a terrible position right now. It's not unwinnable, and if you hadn't noticed thus far, there is no Pokemon revealed that has an ability to absorb Toxic besides Snorlax and Zapdos, but that would slow down the Zapdos, and it would really slow down the Snorlax. So why did this person not click Toxic? Well, it's a bit of a weird scenario. This turn was very strange, and to think that, this person is about to reach, 1600 ELO, I was like, my first reaction as I just get up, I'm like, how did this person almost reach 1600 ELO? If they make a switch like that. But, I thought about it a little bit more, and while this certainly was a mistake of a play, it's not, like I can't understand where this person is coming from. It's more of a logical fallacy, and I want to get into that. But I do want to say I've never reached an ELO as high as this person. So, they do have some semblance of an idea of what they're doing. And just because you're at a high ELO, or just because you're a tournament winner, or just because you aspire to win, doesn't mean you aren't prone to mistakes. There are hiccups. There's an infinite amount of reasons why this person may have come to the wrong conclusion. They clearly, it's some tunnel visioning. So Skarmory, like I said, packs Toxic. I had a discussion this morning with Deezcastforms, and he said, well, I saw Curse, so it couldn't have been Toxic. Well, actually, even with Whirlwind, Skarmory has been seen to use Toxic. So there are plenty of different shades and flavors of Skarmory that you can go by. Once upon a time, I guess it was pretty popular to see Drill Peck and Toxic and Rest and Whirlwind on the same set. But that one is usually the frailest and easiest to break with some consistent play. Then there's, of course, Curse Whirlwind, and then, Drill Peck. But that set, Drill Peck Skarmory without Toxic has a lot of issues with the likes of Tyranitar, for instance. But then there's also Toxic and not Drill Peck, and that's good versus T-Tar. It's decent versus Machamp. It's good versus Golem, but now you have trouble chipping down Gengar and Nidoking, right? Nidoking. So pick your poison, literally. The thing is, if I'm in the seat of the offensive player right here, and we're looking at this from the perspective of Deezcastforms, Machamp is never going to break this Skarmory without some insane luck. At least not at this health. This is, for all intents and purposes, a healthy enough Skarmory to be able to take on anything that Machamp has. Okay? Cross Chop deals like 30 to 36%. That's it. Unboosted, no crits. And with a crit, it deals about double. So it's not really going to break through this Skarm. Another important calc, I guess, to sort of keep in mind would be the +1 Machamp, but this isn't +1, so we're just talking about this turn here. If I'm the stall player, I would most likely want to click Toxic here if I have it. So Machamp, if it gets Toxic here, it most likely is not going to be able to come in later. Like, it will be able to come in maybe once, okay? Or twice or something like that. The problem with many games is that when a Machamp gets Toxic, it's put on a timer. And you're putting on a timer something that is already very frail. It has no immunities. It's pretty slow. And, yeah, the only thing it has going for it is that it's like a glass cannon, so it can deal a lot of damage. But it's also inconsistent with its accuracy because Cross Chop isn't entirely accurate. So, you can see where this goes poorly, especially because Skarmory, while not a pure Machamp check, it's not really the best. It's often paired with something that can check Machamp, like a Starmie. On stall, yeah. But on offense teams as well, you don't want Machamp getting Toxic ever. And you always have to be wary of that. So, with what I said thus far, Machamp doesn't OHKO this Skarmory. It also doesn't have Fire Blast. And you're not in a desperate situation right now. It's only turn 6. You don't have information. You don't know. So you must assume Skarmory has Toxic. Deezcastforms didn't know that Curse Whirlwind Skarmory also could possibly run Toxic, so we'll let that slide. It's still not a great turn to stay in, okay? Because Drill Peck can chip down the Machamp. It's not a Rest Talk Machamp, so it doesn't have infinite health. Yeah, spikes aren't down yet. With this in mind, the play would be technically to switch out. And now we look at the perspective of Eco Papa, right? What happens? Eco Papa switches out. Bam. So they made a double back to T-Tar. Probably expecting Zapdos, but that's not what happened. In fact, Deezcastforms only went to Zapdos once facing the Skarmory. So it wasn't even a great assumption to make, in my opinion. So here's where the thing falls apart. Ecopapa has this Skarmory that clearly threatens the Machamp to make it inefficient. You know, it's like if it toxics the Machamp isn't quite done, but it's on a path to its, you know, inevitable demise. And I guess they assume that the opponent is going to switch out. Why isn't this, now looking at it from this perspective here, why is it that it's not a good idea though? Well, first off, if you go to Skarm, you're pretty much safe here. No matter what the opponent does, even if in staying in, you're relatively safe. Like, the worst thing that could happen is you click Curse and they use fucking Fire Blast. Okay? But that means they reveal a lot of information. And yes, they do outspeed you, but then the Skarmory can come back another turn, probably. Okay, so you just go to something else that checks it. Well, all right. So you're set, you know. Curse, if I'm Ecopapa here, I could, you know, react to this situation in different ways. I can use Curse, and this basically makes it so that my opponent, like, I'm basically avoiding a +1 Oko chance from Machamp, because the Machamp is probably Curse. So if it has Curse, then I'm already set up, and I can start attacking it or punishing it. And that basically helps me because I managed to absorb a little more damage, and I'm also not being pressured too much the next time I have to come in on a Snorlax, for instance, which we'll be setting up. Toxic, goes without saying, is also a good move, but you can either Toxic or Curse and then Toxic. And chances are it's going to be a good move because none of the Pokemon here, you know. The thing is, what if you don't have Toxic? What if you have Drill Peck? Well, then you probably have to Curse and then Drill Peck. Okay? But they probably assume that because the opponent would respect their Toxic, that they don't have, by the way, spoilers, they can just switch out willy-nilly. And the fundamental problem with that is that you don't gain anything from this switch here, even if there is a Zapdos. You're stalling. You have a stall team, okay? When you have a stall team, your objective isn't to ensure the most KOs. It's to ensure, first of all, that your opponent isn't getting more than 1 KO per Pokemon. Second of all, that you're avoiding their win conditions from happening as often as possible. And you're never, and unless you are on the back foot, you don't necessarily have to make any predictions, okay? Like I said, Ecopapa doesn't have Toxic, so it's not like he could have pulled out a Toxic from thin air. But surely he must have had another option that wasn't going to T-Tar. He could have stayed in, Drill Pecked, or gone to something else if he really wanted to. But he had to do it based on what was in front of him and not what he would expect would happen. Instead, this happens, bam. All right, so I spent like 15 minutes talking about one turn. There was so much more to be said, but whatever. So the Skarmory goes down, in comes the Zap, and now it's a really tough situation because if this is Curse, you know, if for any reason this is Curse Flame or any of these mons are packing a fire move, it's a really tough problem, okay? So Cloyster comes in on a Blissey, and so it's a sort of passive stall. Blissey is interesting because it sponges Zapdos a lot, but that doesn't mean you can't pressure it. So in this scenario, Machamp is not only healthy, but it took down Amon, and it looks like the only thing really standing in the way here is, at least for now, is Starmie, right? So Cloyster got the spikes. I don't necessarily agree with this play of staying in the turn after that for the Toxic. Because, again, information is important. It's really a good idea to just go to Snorlax here. So you go to Snorlax, and you hurt something. With this Psychic, you could have gotten crit and KO'd, and that would have been the end. You don't know if it's a T-Wave Starmie. There's a lot of things that wasn't really great about that play. So, yeah, in hindsight, he got the Poison Starmie, which is good, and I don't agree with staying in here. There's no reason to do that. A crit would KO the Starmie. Recovery is a pain in the butt, because now when you click recover, you're not only stacking poison damage, which makes the double edge stick, like you're getting dealt more than half each time you click recover, but it's also toxic. So yeah, that wasn't a good play. Okay. Like I said, no judgment. I don't always assess games correctly. In fact, I tunnel vision way too much. That's why I don't do more analysis videos, because I can send the wrong message, and I want to be, I want to try and be informative. Really good double here. Great double, in fact, because there's a Zapdos. Pretend you didn't see the Heracross, but Zapdos forces in either Blissey or Snorlax. And Machamp is just an excellent check. It can OHKO both of these with a crit, so that's great. And then you see Heracross, and it's like, okay, why didn't the player switch to either Starmie or Heracross if they really wanted to make a play? And especially because if they're worried about Zapdos or something, or Snorlax, they shouldn't be going back and forth like that. You shouldn't, like with stall, you should sort of be reacting. Now, in this situation, it's almost like with the loss, you have to play aggressively. So in stall, you don't want to ever bring yourself to a point where you are forced to do anything. You do things when needed, and you try and react to it. This Heracross is also pretty threatening. So we see Heracross is a great Machamp check because it resists ground, it resists bug. It doesn't take a lot damage from Rock Slide because it's not that strong. And even though fighting technically resists bug, Heracross is actually a mon that doesn't particularly care about type effectiveness. As long as the mon isn't with exceptionally high defense, and even then, a resistance isn't a big deal. Like, the only things that truly actually wall Curse Heracross are Skarmory and Steelix. Like, Heracross has been known to plow through Machamps, Zapdoses, Gengars, and even Forretress. Like, and the reason is just the fact that its attack is so high and it has such a powerful move in Megahorn. So we saw this double, and they go to the Hera. All right. In reaction to that, Cross Chop doesn't deal anything exceptionally high. And again, with this turn, with this sequencing, with this doubling, why are you doubling? You must just face what's in front of you. What if you clicked Cross Chop again? That was an immediate forfeit. An immediate forfeit right after that. Cross Chop, bam, dead. Okay, so too much dancing. Furthermore, they click Curse here. Now at +1 with a weakened Heracross. Not entirely weakened, but it's kind of yucky because you have this very scary turn here where the Heracross has to come in, and if you crit it, it's actually now in a position where it's not as secure anymore. So Machamp, I'm going to keep going. So Here, Deezcastforms is making a mistake. So he's letting it set up. So I'm just going to go through this whole ordeal, and I'll talk about it after the fact. So we see some damage. The Machamp is really high, so now should be the time to start attacking because the Heracross is asleep. Now it's awake, so it's not really a big deal anymore. 31, oh well. And now the Heracross is caught up. So not only has it caught up, but now it's able to basically threaten Zapdos. So you can't even switch into Zapdos anymore. And this is why it's not a good play to do that, because your only option, you're only out now against Heracross, besides trying to 1v1 it, which is that's the madman play, is going to Golem and then Roaring. So you have to take a hit. So that's not ideal. Typically what you want to do is you go to Zapdos as early as possible and you thunder it down. Blissey comes in, who cares? You come back in with Cloyster, you lay the spikes, and you rinse and repeat, and essentially now the next time Heracross has to come back in and do other things. So let's see what goes on in this 1v1. Okay, rest, sure. PP stalling, that's what I would do if I'm Eco Papa, because now at this point, Heracross can essentially win. Heracross is very odd because it has this strange ability to potentially destroy entire offense teams. It doesn't look like it from a glance, but this Machamp doesn't have any recovery move. So it's a slow process, like probably a 6-hit KO, barring the accuracy. But they're going to keep at this for a bit. And there's a crit. Now it's just like 2-3 more hits. So he can take his time, heal back up. And now Deezcastforms is forced to keep going. Hidden power, crit. Okay. I might even be going for cross chop at this point. Reason being, the Machamp has already done a lot of work. I know it's great to be able to, like, looking at this, it's great to have a Machamp here. You know, you can pretty much 6-0 the team. But, like, you're in a commanding position right now. If you take down even just one other Mon, it really helps the rest of the team from this position. You can, but we'll talk about the end game and the game plan in general later. Having a game plan is important. So this Heracross is winning, you know. The only way through, we've seen the 4 moves, the only way through for Machamp to win is to crit. And Eco Papa is also being intelligent enough to keep the Heracross faster. I mean, Heracross is faster, but sometimes you want to make sure that you stay one stage lower. And there's a critical cross chop there. So that's it. The Heracross is down. Machamp is now a huge threat. We've seen Psychic, so Machamp would probably switch out here. Fair enough. Again, what is it with this? Why are we doing these doubles? I don't understand. What if I decide that, okay, my Machamp has taken out 2 Mons. I have 5 versus 4 left, and this Machamp. It's done its job. I'm going to stay in and take the Psychic. You know, whatever. I'm going to stay in. I don't want to risk anything else. I'll click Cross Chop here. What does Eco Papa do? In case you didn't catch that. In case you did not catch this. Right? Do you see the problem here? All right. Okay, so there are lots of assumptions being made. Fair enough. We do that all the time. It's really the logical fallacies that are bringing us to this point. So, but I want to defend Eco Papa here because the Heracross was doing the right thing. It should definitely have been used earlier. It's a little bit weird. It's a weird team. It's not a typical stall team. Okay? Stall, it's not the kind of stall where you're always going to play defensively, but at the very least, you want to find some mid grounds, but you want to alternate between mid grounds and and soft checks. Mid ground, soft check, mid ground, soft check, something like that. Find an opening, chip them down, do this or that. We've seen that the Skarmory doesn't have any toxics, which is fine. There's a T-Tar probably for supporting the Heracross, against the likes of Gengar, pursuits. Fair enough. The Heracross is really good for Nidoking and Machamp. So even though we saw this team is, we have a passive Blissey, it's fine. The Heracross there is actually pretty decent glue defensively. And it's a neat win con. It's not the ultimate win con, but if you clean up a team and you do a good enough job at breaking through one or two mons, Heracross it becomes increasingly threatening. So the idea with stall is that you want to get better and better over time and not play like you have all of the cards in your hand at the beginning. So you're just trying to make them dance. Not easy without spikes, but not impossible. Not easy without toxic, but not impossible. So with this, I'm gonna go back to Deezcastforms, and here I don't want to stay in on Machamp, on Heracross, even if I might stay in for one extra turn with this +1. That's fair. But ideally, I have a limited amount of cross chops. I already used 3. There are 5 mons, and it would be really nice if I could just, use 1 or 2 of them to take out the Skarmory or something. Because if I take out Skarmory, my Snorlax is able to beat this entire team. No questions asked. That's the big target. And you're going to need a couple of shots at that Skarm. Okay? Because like we said earlier, it doesn't OHKO. It's also nice to just have Machamp there with the threat of an OHKO on Snorlax. Maybe with the threat of OHKOing Blissey, if you OHKO Blissey, then Zapdos comes into the fray and is even more threatening because it means that every time, the Snorlax is going to have to come in on spikes, come in on a Thunder, because these mons are not going to be able to take Zapdos very well. Also, no more Heal Bell support, so the Starmie is on a permanent timer. So what options do we have here? Well, the Heracross is weakened. We didn't get the crit that might have allowed us to stay in an extra turn. If it had gotten weakened, then there's a possible discussion for, okay, let me see if I can maybe break the Hera. But that didn't happen. So I probably just want to go to Zapdos, because Heracross can, at +2 or +3, it already threatens to OHKO Zapdos. It OHKOs T-Tar at +1. It can take a boom, and it can even force you to boom twice. It can OHKO Snorlax, and it can 1v1 the Machamp. So your only good check on many offense teams for Heracross, and this includes even Nido Gartar, is Zapdos. Steelix teams, Foray teams, Charizard teams, I guess, they're much more well-equipped for Heracross. Zapdos has to rely on an inaccurate move and has to make sure that it keeps Heracross in check. But what about Blissey? Blissey is passive. It doesn't matter. You go to Snorlax every time Blissey comes in. And if you realize it doesn't have Toxic, then that's just another opportunity for Machamp to come in. So that's what I don't agree with here. So I don't agree with these plays. And look, if you don't believe me, I'll be looking at these damage. I'll show you on the screen these damage calcs so you know what I mean and why Heracross is very threatening. It's a good mon. It's not the most bulky. It's not the most offensive, but it just has that ability to cleave through teams if you aren't careful. And I think enough has been said about this. So, moving on. We haven't even gotten to the point where maybe, Deezcastforms might have identified the win con. So, at this point, we got rid of the Heracross. What is the situation? We got rid of the Heracross. We got rid of the T-Tar. So Machamp is pretty well set to threaten something. We've taken one mon down. Tyranitar is also looking pretty good without the Hera in the way. And you have two booms. You can lay the spikes. You can really, really pressure Eco Papa right now. You just got to maybe get the Lax in, get the Skarmory in. Doesn't matter what. You could even boom on Starmie at this point. They're down 2 mons. If you boom on Starmie and you don't get to keep your spikes, that's pretty much fine. Like, you have 3 mons that are slow, mostly not able to pressure the likes of T-Tar and Golem together. So, yeah. So that's what I see, at least so far. So we see this turn here. He switches to the Lax. The Starmie is healed, but it's not fully recovered. And I don't agree with that play because Heal Bell on the Snorlax, crit, it's over. Also, even not critting, even just staying in, but also Deez, you got to watch out because you got to curse Snorlax, okay? You shouldn't worry about Blissey. You should be staying in here. You should be staying in, even if it's toxic. The only thing might be counter, but Heal Bell and counter aren't compatible. So if you can get some extra chip on the Skarmory, that's even better. You double edge once, then you go to Zap, and, rinse and repeat like that. So T-Tar comes in here. I can understand this switch, but I don't, again, the reason why it got to this point is already a bad omen. Rock Slide crit would be the end of it. But you go to Starmie in case of a Fire Blast or something. Fair, I guess. So, all right, shit. Sorry, guys. What's going on here? So Zapdos comes in. I want to get a para on the Blissey. Blissey's low. I want to get a para on the Blissey. I'd like to see some Thunders being thrown out here. Because now you are in the lead, so you don't have to make some insane predictions. Sure, maybe you don't want to stay on the Blissey now because it's a little bit annoying, but it's still a Sleep Talk Zapdos. You go to Cloy. Cloy's a bit iffy. T-Tar's also a bit iffy because of the threat of Toxic. Putting your Machamp on a timer is always annoying. And this doesn't have D-Punch. So without Dynamic Punch, okay, there's a nice crit, high roll crit. Now the Blissey's extremely low. We still didn't really cement our spikes. We only used spike once. And again, the Starmie's coming in. Sure. Okay, fair. That's fine. Zapdos. Here you click Thunder. Okay, good that you did that. But now the Cloyster is low, so you can't go to Cloyster anymore. So what are you going to do here? Okay, interesting double. That's fair. Yeah, in case of Earthquake, you absorb the Lovely Kiss there. Okay, sure. That seems fine to me. Maybe... I don't mind this play. I don't mind this. I just think that with an offensive T-Tar and a Lovely Kiss that was used up, yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. It's a damn shame that the Machamp is so low, though, because here it was almost definitely going to pick something up. Here I feel like I could have improved the set on T-Tar. Dynamic Punch would have been much more threatening. So they stay in on the Zapdos. The Thunder would have probably killed, I'm pretty sure. I'll show the damage roll on the screen. But if my mind serves me correctly, Thunder should kill if it was at 19%. But too bad, because it's not fucking rolling the move. At this point, I don't know what you're trying to get, what you're trying to achieve that you hadn't already been trying. So we see Light Screen, we see Soft Boiled, we see Flamethrower. Boom, right? That's it. This is not a toxic team. We see Return Lovely Kiss. So what is the objective here if it's not to whittle down the opponent slowly? Well, chances are this could be a Drumlax, also known as Turbo Lax. Machamp speed ties it with Blissey. So this was a bit aggressive. Use the Machamp there, and it kind of dies, which is too bad because I think that it still had plenty it could have done. Okay. Should have used Lax more, but we're seeing some problems with Deezcastforms' game plan. Now I'm going to pause again. I know it's been like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. But the problem here is that Snorlax is not really... It may not look like it's a big win condition, but it's a huge win condition. If you just force this Skarmory in more. You haven't been using Snorlax very much. You've only used one Curse and a few Double Edges. If you whittle down that Skarmory, there's always a chance you can crit it. There was a chance that you could have come in with a T-Tar as it's resting. You have Flamethrower. You can go to Zapdos. You can do a bunch of things. What I don't see here is trying to get the spikes and cement them. And also, I don't see enough of the offensive pressure. I don't see enough pressure happening. So Curse, Drill Peck. Fair enough. It's a Whirlwind Skarm, we know. And now we're seeing some of the damage, but I mean, now Eco Papa can actually kind of win because he's healed up all his mons. So it's annoying to stay in like this and get a crit. If you get a crit, Lax could die. And you're also using up your double edge PP, which is limited. So I don't agree with this. I would have maybe tried getting Cloyster in if it had been a little bit higher. Otherwise, you just Zapdos and do things like that. Okay. What do you do here? Could have Toxiced on the switch. You know that those spikes are going to go. Going to Lax is fine here. That's whatever. It's not a misplay, but that's fine. Okay, I'm going to speed things up. So, like I said, there's only one thing standing between the Snorlax and a sweep, and it's the Skarmory. So if you weaken the Skarmory, that's partly why Machamp is so great, because Machamp doesn't always beat Stall, but it's good enough. And here is where it gets very iffy, because now we see this happen. So, what's the deal with this? Why did we double to Lax? Why did we double to Lax? T-Tar is meant to check Lax, even though it's Rock Slide. He doesn't know that, you don't have another move. You don't know if it's Curse. If it's Curse, you slow it down. It's fine. You have a Golem. This is fine. In fact, they just gave you 30%. You could have dealt 30% to them with Rock Slide, maybe even flinch them. It wouldn't have been nice, but it would have been nice enough. I don't know. Belly Drum. It's kind of hard to argue in favor of any of the plays, but also against them because of how things played out. The Cloyster is weakened, Machamp is weakened, so yeah. Cloyster comes in, you boomed on them, and now they have a clear way to win, potentially. So that's very scary. Uh, I don't understand that. That boom didn't make any sense. Yeah, Skarmory can, can get chipped now, but if you KO anything that isn't Skarmory, it's gonna come in. Like if you KO something with Lax now, Skarmory comes in, rests, and that's it. So what do you do here? Double edge. Now Skarmory comes in and uses rest. See? Here, T-Tar finally can do something, but it's a bit awkward. So at this point, there is nothing that Eco Papa can do to win besides switching infinitely and dodging. So Deezcastforms would have to throw very heavily. T-Tar breaks. Zapdos chips. Zapdos can para the Blissey, make Snorlax outspeed the Blissey, force Eco to go to T-Tar, then you can double to to go to Skarm, then you can double to T-Tar. You can go for some rock slides. Rinse, repeat. You can... The booms were entirely unnecessary, and they targeted Skarmory, and Skarmory healed off everything. Plus, Blissey has Heal Bell, so Heal Bell can just nullify the rest here. So it's not that Eco Papa doesn't have an out, but it's very dicey for Eco Papa. There's a lot of switching. In fact, double and triple switching, flamethrowers. That's pretty much the only thing these can do now without sometimes applying the pressure. In fact, Eco Papa isn't even attacking at all or even using the support moves. Doesn't even want to give a single PP. Stays in on T-Tar to click Psychic for God knows what reason. Why would you stay in on T-Tar to click Psychic? Okay. I'm not understanding Eco Papa's logic here. So I'm kind of coaching two players at once. We see a Rock Slide. And I'm sorry that the switches are happening very quickly, but when you put things on fast, what happens is that the more switches and double switches you do consecutively, the faster the switch is, so it becomes lightning quick. And it doesn't even check for lefties and stuff. So that's why, and now it's like slow, but I turned it to normal. I apologize. Okay. T-Tar, flamethrower, a burn would be nice here. There's the burn. I go to Lax here every day. Okay, whatever. Okay, well, since it's in, I guess this is fine. Rock Slide. Sure, yeah, I guess. Pursuit could have been cute. Wouldn't have done much, but would have been nice. Okay, yeah, what do you do here? Good double. Skarm. Gotta watch out for the PP there. 7 rock slides, 9 thunders, 11 double edges. I'm starting to give the favor to Eco. What's he going to make happen here? Crit, flamethrower, burn. Imagine the odds of that. Recover, and I guess Eco just stays in here and loses by staying in on a double edge? No. EQ crit. Sure. Okay, now it's very dicey because of all the attacks. And another EQ crit could be bad. Pursuit. All right. I should really fix that T-Tar set. I feel like a lot more could be gained if we just mixed it up a little. Made it screech or something. Pursuit. This doesn't really work for every scenario. Well, that was a good idea. Okay, double edge. All right. And they stay in. Crit. No, but they continue to use soft boiled. So they're going to run out eventually. They're trying to stall out the double edges, but I don't agree with this when you can literally go to Skarmory every day of the week. This is just asking for it. There are 7 more double edges to go for. And there it is. We missed it. There's the turn. Crit. Doesn't even matter that Lax is at 410%. It's over. Zapdos just wins. Of course, I wouldn't do that because like 2 crit surfs could be a problem. But again, it's fine. I guess. That hadn't clicked rest. But yeah, there it is. So that's pretty much the game, folks. Yeah. So, you know, if anything, I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody. I don't agree with these plays for the most part. But what would be the takeaway here? Machamp is a pretty decent wall breaker for Snorlax. We didn't really get to see the effects of Drumlax or the Heracross, but Heracross is also very threatening. Use your spikes because Blissey Starmie is actually pretty easy to circle around. In fact, it's probably one of the cores that I would enjoy. I would relish facing in a offense versus stall matchup. I get to Toxic the Starmie and make the Heal Bell Blissey run out of Heal Bells. Also, they don't even have Toxic, so it's pretty easy. I don't even need a Gengar to spin block, you know. I don't want to stay in on Starmie for any reason with Cloyster, unless it's to boom. But it was also very early in the game. Hera, I believe, was still around. So you just Toxic it, lay your spikes whenever you can, bring it in on Snorlax, which means make the Snorlax come in, you know. And Golem is just there. It's actually just a neat thing to have. So Machamp is good. Yeah, hopefully we could see other scenarios where maybe T-Tar could shine a little bit more. This isn't the best nor the be-all, end-all. But it's okay. It has its uses, right? This T-Tar set. So anyways, now for the announcement, I'm going to host... I had this idea. I'm going to host a GSC tour. But I would like to make it so that Skarmory can use spikes. So it's going to be a GSC tour, but Skarmory can learn spikes tour. Yeah. And that's why I think ADV players could really enjoy this, because I've always wondered how the meta could change if we had this. And I don't know, maybe we could give a little prize money or something like that. Nothing too huge because I don't have a lot of money to burn through, but yeah. So keep that in mind. I'm going to host this tournament, and I think the signups should end around November. Like, the tournament should start around that period. So I'll mention it again. Skarmory learns spikes. That's the only thing I really want. I might add a few extra ADV moves in the GSC thing. That's it. But for the rest, it's going to be entirely GSC mechanics. All the EVs are going to be maxed out. No abilities, none of that. So it's going to be a GSC game, but just that one difference. Okay. All right. So stay tuned. I have some more videos that some I've already recorded, some I'm going to do in collaboration with others. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you would like to see. I always want to go over certain things. Unfortunately, this was a little bit drawn out. I know. It's basically an hour long. I wanted to go through the whole thing. But I'm going to do some discussion videos. I'm going to do some analysis. If you want me to analyze a game of yours, wow, that would be great. Please, by all means, send it my way. And who knows, maybe I'll cover a little bit of GSCPL. It's a damn shame I basically never covered it besides like the first GSCPL. So yeah, take care. Bye-bye.